Hey everyone, welcome back to Peaceful Growth Podcast. We have very special guest today, Justin Mulvaney. Justin is executive and leadership coach, where he helps entrepreneurs, executives to lead and live consciously. We'll learn a little bit more about what is the conscious leadership and all that good stuff from Justin in a little bit. But let me tell you one story. Last year, I was in a very dark spot. I lost the purpose, vision, clarity, and was also struggling with a burnout, being an entrepreneur for 14 years. So personally, professionally, I was in a really dark spot. And I started looking for help. And first thing came in my mind that I should work with somebody actually suggested me that I should work with an executive or performance coach who can help me give some clarity and can act as a soundboard and provide that help that's needed. So I started looking for executive and performance coach, and I stumbled upon Justin. And Justin, I started working. We worked for roughly 3 to 6 months. And then in that phase, there were a lot of things that Justin helped me realize and learn. And fast forward now, I feel much more energetic. I found my purpose. And a lot of different things that actually came out from my coaching with Justin. So Justin is here today, and we're going to talk a lot about that. But Justin also has a podcast. It's called No Right Answer. He's a co-host in that podcast, and we'll put that into our show notes. So you should watch that. There are a bunch of different tips and advice that will help you if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a high achiever, or whatever your goal is. But there is a lot of interesting topics and content that Justin has already talked about. And also he writes on his weekly blog on conscious leadership. I know that was a long intro, but let's welcome Justin here. Hey, Justin.
Hey, Anil, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I loved that intro.
Yeah, I mean, everything that, like as an entrepreneur, it's kind of very hard, when you start your journey, you're focused so much into your game and you don't realize that how important it is for you to just have a different lens, someone looking at you and helping you and showing your blind spots. So yeah, that was a big help, and really appreciate your help last year with your coaching and your advice. And I'm really excited today to kind of talk about it, because this is peaceful growth. Right? The podcast is Peaceful Growth. And people who listen to this podcast, they are all high achievers. They want to do something in their life. They have dreams, they have goals, high visions. But also some of them are scared because they feel like hard work, it requires hard work, it requires sacrifice, and it will also affect their happiness and their peace. So they don't take action at all. And some, they do way too much, and in the process, they burn out and then they give up. So I think we will not have any other better guest than you who can kind of talk about this from both aspects, like importance of growth, and how to embed growth and peace into your personal and professional life.
Beautiful. I'm excited to dig in.
Yeah. So how about we start, Justin, with your story and intro, that who you are and how you actually become an executive coach.
Yeah. So my name is Justin Mulvaney. I'm a conscious leadership and executive coach. And what that means, which is, Anil, what you were pointing to, is I mostly work with founders, entrepreneurs, leaders in technology predominantly, also leadership teams. And my goal is to help leaders be both more effective, but also more conscious. And so what that looks like is I mostly work with leaders on identifying, understanding, and shifting their patterns. So behavioral patterns, thought patterns, the strategies that leaders deploy to go out and achieve success in the world, and understanding how are those patterns in service of them, how sometimes are those patterns not so much in service of them. And when we have identified they're not in service, helping to understand what brings them up, what makes them, engage in those patterns, and then create some space to shift and experiment with other ways of showing up. And frequently the lens on that is where interpersonal drama shows up, where their energy is leaking, where they feel like you said, they're not on purpose. They're not as alive in what they're doing anymore, and really helping them go in and understanding what's happening under the surface. So not only are they more effective leaders, but they're more alive, they're more conscious, they're more aware. There's a liveliness that comes up when somebody is not just effective, but also deeply aligned with what their heart, mind, body want. How I became a coach, I actually knew really early in my career I wanted to be a coach. So I have kind of had an interesting path. In college, I studied math and economics, but there was a brief stint in there where I studied philosophy. And that was probably actually the subject that most brought me alive in college. It was moral philosophy. It was studying the Greek philosophers, Aristotle, Plato. And really the question that lit me up there was they were primarily asking what makes for a good life. And that really got me hooked. And then at some points, enough people looked at me and said, you can't study philosophy. You can't have a career out of that I left the major and did other things. But very early in my career, I started picking up a lot of psychology books. I was always self-help oriented. And I found that the psychology was so fascinating to me. It felt like applied philosophy. It felt like the question of what is a good life through the constraints of the human mind and the human body and what it means to be human. And around the same time, I went and reached out for help. At that point, it was a therapist at the time, and found the tools that were shared in that insanely powerful. And I just couldn't believe that wasn't something that we just all had. And then I also listened to a podcast with a coach. It's actually the Tim Ferriss podcast, an interview with Josh Waitzkin. And the way I felt Josh and the way Josh spoke, I was just fascinated by him. And I felt this pull of, I want to do that. And I want to have that be my work. And so it took me a little while to get there. About the first 5 to 7 years of my career, I was mostly taking early stage leadership roles at early stage startups. And then the last company I worked for in late 2020 got acquired. And as I'm sure many people experienced in their journeys to entrepreneurship, when the company got acquired, I knew I was going to change. I knew I'm not going to work at this acquiring company. I have no interest in this. And there was kind of a writing on the wall moment where I was like, I've known I've wanted to be a coach forever. I'm about to go into transition. Listen, the situation's not perfect. I'd love to have infinite savings. I'd have all these things to make this leap easy. But I kind of saw the chessboard's never going to be better than this. It's never going to make more sense for me to try now. And that was the thing that kind of tossed me into my venture into coaching. And I've been loving the ride ever since.
Beautiful. Thanks, Justin, for sharing that. So, Justin, what do you think about this? That how about we go maybe break down the entire process of an entrepreneur? They struggle with whatever we call it, burnout, the lack of motivation, lack of clarity. Those are like some of those early signs where we feel like when we start something, and I'm telling that from my personal story, that when I started my business, I was super energetic, and I had like very clear vision, very focused, very energetic. And eventually, there was a point where I started struggling with my health, my focus. I was not able to find the joy that I was doing. So kind of like break it down from what are those early signs of burnout, or what are those early signs where entrepreneurs actually face, and especially as you worked with a lot of entrepreneurs like me, I want if it would be really helpful if you share that, and then we can kind of like slowly go to that. Once you find out that you need the help, or like there are some areas where you want to make some progress but you're struggling, and then how to find the help, who can help, and some of the process part of that.
Yeah. I think you painted a really beautiful picture, which is frequently the initial entry into entrepreneurship. When you start, there's a lot of energy. It's exciting to get out of bed in the morning. It's exciting to work sometimes 12, 14, 16-hour days. Like there's the image I have is it's like you're in a the rapids of a stream. Like you are in a river that is just flying and you're having a blast surfing the waves.
Yeah.
And what frequently happens is at some point, there's a couple things that can happen. Either the pace of the river starts to feel like it's much slower. It's harder to get out of bed in the morning. It's really hard to motivate and show up, and you're procrastinating going to the computer or getting on the calls. There's a point where the energy starts to suck out of it, and it feels much more like it's a grind to do it, right? Instead of that thing just flying out of bed in the morning and passionately getting into it, it feels much more effortful. It feels much more like people are forcing themselves to do it. And as you said, yeah, it's hard to get out of bed. You feel like you don't want to work as much. You feel like you're really forcing yourself to get into work. And yeah, absolutely. Sometimes there's mental health issues that can show up. It's feel kind of depressed, unmotivated, lethargic. There also can be physical health symptoms. But in general, I would say there's a sense of energy and aliveness that's not there anymore. And that's kind of the core light bulb moment that goes on and says, I'm burning out. There's something off here. And that's usually the moment for me when folks start to come looking for coaching. It's not lighting me up. It's not alive. There's a sense of, I still want to be doing this, but the way that I'm doing it isn't working for me anymore.
And one thing I will add into that, Justin, it's like, it's not that period, sometimes it's not that consistent. Like you feel like that for whole month, like 3 months or 6 months or a year, but it starts in a very small portion. So let's say one day you don't feel good, 2 days you don't, 3 days are fine. You feel like, okay, there is an energy. And next week, again, you go back to the same phase. That's kind of something that I observed and that was also stopping me I was telling myself like, no, I'm fine. I was like, look at me. Yesterday was great, and then it's like, yesterday I was energetic. Yesterday I was motivated, whatever. And then when I look back my whole year, I'll see that like, oh shit, only 50% of the time I had the right energy, but the other 50% of the time I was struggling. So I think that's kind of like also very important, especially like people who are a little bit self-disciplined or like, something like that. So then they will find like, oh yeah, I'm going to go gym and start working out and that will make you feel better. But you're still not addressing the root cause. Going to the gym is not going to help you with a burnout. Yes, it is a good step, but that's going to just give you a temporary relief versus like addressing the root cause. Would you like to add anything on that?
Yeah, I think what you're pointing to, I think that's absolutely it. And I think part of the driver behind that is it's actually scary to admit I'm losing the passion. I'm feeling burned out. I think there's really a part of us that doesn't want to face that, because
that's a good point.
The first step in facing it is saying, I'm not as motivated. I'm burnt out. I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And that's a really, especially with entrepreneurs who we so often build our identities around our work and our companies, it is really challenging to us to turn at that primary identity and say, I don't know if this is working for me anymore. Because there's a chance that the end result of that is, I don't want to be doing this anymore. And then our entire identity kind of melts and fades away. And so I do think the point that you're making, which is it can take a while to really be honest with ourselves and say something doesn't feel right here, because it's a courageous act to actually face that.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And I can feel that, like, some of my early conversations that I was having with myself, I can see what stories I was telling myself at that moment. So next question, Justine. Let's say an entrepreneur, they found the early signs, they now know that like they need help. They they're struggling or burnout, and they still want to work, but just struggling. So they already identified that stage. Now, the next step for them is like, who can help me in this situation? Who is the right person? Because that's where I think, like, should I go and find a therapist, or should I talk about this to my best friend, or should I talk about this to an HR? Like, where should I go when I find out? So, what do you have any process, or like what did you learn, or what do you suggest there?
Yeah. Yeah, now I'm biased as I'm a coach. So the easy answer for me to say, go find a great coach or go to my website and submit a form. What I'll say is there's two very important things for wherever you turn, which is one, you want to find a space that's really supportive. Somebody who is really honestly aligned and on your team. But in my experience, that is not enough, which is why I advise, or I don't advise, just going to friends and family, because what they're likely to do is really support and go, man, that sounds hard. It sounds like you're struggling. I see you. But to really break through, you also need a place where somebody's going to provide some challenge, where somebody's going to be willing to look at you and go, yeah, I hear that's really hard. I hear that's challenging. And also, are you willing to take some action to change it? And also somebody who might go, I hear that this is hard for you, but I hear you're not willing to take action yet. Here's all the things I hear you could be trying and you're not doing them yet. And there are a lot of different avenues where people can do that. Some great therapists will provide that. Good coaches will provide that. I know some men entrepreneurs who go to men's groups for that. But whatever you do, the most important thing is try and find a place that they'll provide an equal amount of those two things. They are really on your team. They are so for you, but they are also willing to hold your feet to the fire when they see that you're not in action, or you're not willing to change, or you're not taking steps that could actually shift for you.
Right. Yeah, no, that was really powerful, Justin. I think those two things that you said, yeah, I think that pretty much clarifies, that what not to do, I think, so that absolutely. So I love that answer. Next question is, what executive coach does? So someone who doesn't work with an executive coach or a performance coach, and if you can help simplify like what the role of an executive coach or a leadership coach is, and what are the different things they do, and what are the different things they don't do, so kind of like that was another thing that when I was recruiting and looking for an executive performance coach, when I find out that, okay, I need help, and I already did like talking to a friend and talking to all of that. And but as you said, like, that there was like, it was not challenging, so that's kind of like step, but like, okay, I need someone who hold me accountable, plus also help me understand that like what is going through, because whatever the narration and stories that I was telling myself, it sounded good in the moment, but it was not helping me to reach where I wanted to go. So yeah, so the question for you is that what executive leadership coach does, and what they do and don't do, and what are some of the expectations, right expectations?
Yeah. The first thing is every executive leadership coach is going to be a little bit different. There's a really wide variety. It's very similar to the therapy space. There's tons of different therapy modalities. Therapists are going to show up in a myriad of different ways. They're going to use different techniques, and also their personalities are going to be different. And how they choose to show up in that regard is different. And in my experience, executive coaching can be just as wide. The furthest ends of the spectrums for executive coaching may not look like each other at all. So if you're asking yourself this question and you're saying, I want to find an executive leadership coach, do what I believe you did, Anil, which is talk to a lot of different people. Go to your network, ask for recommendations, talk to, I say at least 5, if you really want to go into it, 10. And what you're going to do is you're going to get a good picture of the things that they do. the types of people who show up in a way that you feel supported and challenged. And so talk to a lot of people. But in general, what a good executive leadership coach is going to do, let me actually start with what they're not going to do. They're not going to be a therapist, in that they're not going to delve into prior traumas, prior wounds from your childhood and try and heal them. There may be some understanding of that that's driven to understand your patterns, but they're not doing that. And specifically, they're also like therapists. They're not giving you a diagnosis. Therapists come in and they'll say, you're suffering from depression, anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. And now here's what we're going to do to help work with that. What a good executive coach is going to come in and do, there's a few things. One is, like I said before, they're going to really try and understand your patterns, your behavioral patterns, your thought patterns. They're going to assess, how do those things show up in a way that are in service of what you want and aren't in service of what you want? What they're also going to do is frequently try and really get in touch with, what are your goals? What do you really want here? And really good coaches might actually challenge that. And they might reflect, hey, when you said that thing, I'm not buying it. You don't feel alive. You don't feel lit up to me. Versus when you said that over there, which actually happened in one of our initial conversations, you said something and I was like, whoa, I feel something in you with what you're talking about there. And so really what it is there's this whole alignment game they're playing, which is, what is it that you really want? What are you really trying to get here? And then when you show up, how are you showing up to get that? And how are those patterns in service of you and not in service of you? And they're going to, they're going to hold up a mirror to you. They're going to reflect to you. What I do with all of my clients is we also go through a feedback process so that people around them can give feedback on, here's how I experience you as being really strong. Here's where I understand your growth opportunities. And then they're really going to try and support you in showing up most powerfully to get what you say that you want.
And one thing I'll add into that is, especially when as an entrepreneur, like CEO, or even as a leader, when there is not anyone who is, let's say, your boss, like when you're your own boss, right? It's very hard to see some of those things that, like, you will tell a bunch of different feedbacks, like your team member, like, hey, this is something that you're not doing well. This is something that you're constantly, like some of those patterns that you talked about, like some of the patterns and the narrations that we tell ourselves. But when you are your own boss, it's very hard to see things that you do and what you mentioned about. And I think that was also very effective, that when you and I, when we're working together, what you did is you reached out to all those people that I work with in my, both like in personal and professional life, and you collected, that 360-degree feedback, and that helped me to see things that I was not able to see myself.
Yeah, I think 2 points here, which is one, when you're at the top of the food chain, when you're the CEO, the entrepreneur, even if you're really great about asking for feedback, again, let's talk about challenge. It's a really uncommon thing in my experience for the people below you to really give you challenging feedback. Why? Because they're terrified that you're going to say you don't have a job anymore.
Right. That's right there.
And so one role that we really take on as coaches is, well, you're my client. You're actually paying me to give you honest feedback. It's the inverse of that relationship, where those people might be afraid. You're more likely to fire me if you feel like you're not getting any challenge. And so I'm actually incentivized to give you that hard feedback. And 2, as entrepreneurs, in my experience, there's entrepreneurs, CEOs, leaders really want to seem like they have it all put together. And you can really convincingly tell yourself that story and really convincingly tell the people around you that story. And then they buy it and they don't actually give you the hard feedback because they don't see that there's an opportunity. Whereas a coach, one, you're frequently coming to me because something doesn't feel like it's working for you. And so there's an opening. Frequently people with me are more honest about how they don't have it together than in other places. And also part of my job as a coach is to have a really fine-tuned BS detector, which is, okay, you're telling me you're not feeling fully alive, you're feeling burned out, but then you're also telling me how great everything is going. And if that's happening, part of my job is to go, hey, this doesn't make sense to me. So what aren't you telling me here? You seem like you want to tell me that you have it all put together, but also part of you isn't feeling alive. So let's get curious about that. So that's another thing a coach will do is if you're coming and you're telling stories, they might challenge it. They might just sit there and go, not buying it.
Yeah.
And help you explore that.
Yeah, I remember two specific incident when I was working with you. The one thing that you helped me realize in one of the conversation where I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do, and like through that questioning, like, okay, why you want to do that? Why you want to do that? Why you're not doing that? So that actually helped me understand what's my true motivation behind that action. So that's kind of like something that I think was a big aha moment at that time for me, that like I remember the question, like, why are you afraid of that? And that question actually is like, why are you afraid of that action? If you have all the data, if you have all this, it's like you already did the research and you already find it's like, what's stopping you to take a next action? And I realized that at the time that it was not the problem that I was telling you, but there was something else, like, whatever my self-belief was actually holding me, not my team member, not my people, not my industry, not my competition, because all of those things were actually not a problem. It was just my own self-belief that was holding me. And that was like, yeah, now this is clear. Like, and I think so that was kind of one incident. And second, I would also actually ask you to share something that, like in the beginning of our coaching, like something that I was telling you about myself, but then later on that when you and I, we started working, that you learned, you helped me realize like the blind spot, that mirror that we talked about, right? Especially when you collected the feedback from the other team members. And as you said, like sometimes your team member will not give you the challenging feedback, some of the critical feedback, but coach can help you to find those important feedback that's important for you. Anything that you discover in that discovery process that you want to share?
Specifically from the discovery process with you, or just in general?
With my, I think, peer, like all the different team members that you talk, and what did you learn from that? Like something that you found out, and I mean, I know what you learned, but I wanted to kind of just bring that on and see that this is something that was, I think, a big learning for you too about me.
Yeah. There were a few really interesting things that I'm specifically feeling into your feedback process. And I think this is actually a really good point for listeners, which is most of your feedback from your folks, which is actually why I doubled into it, was universally positive. And this is another common thing that can happen with entrepreneurs is you can be a great entrepreneur, better than maybe a better boss than anyone's ever worked with before. And so what they'll actually do is they'll also downplay the opportunities for growth that they see in you. And so this was one of the things that happened in your feedback process is a lot of your senior leaders had amazing feedback for you, but they'd be like, yeah, but this is just kind of the cherry on top of the sundae. But for me as your coach, I went, no, that's where the next level for Anil is. That's the next level. And you all are downplaying it, but that's where he wants to go. Right. And so, yeah, some of the blind spots for you, as I recall, were really like, hey, there's an opportunity to really zoom out, to have a bigger vision here, to look broader, to ask bigger questions. And while for everyone else, that was like, oh, this is just kind of a bonus for him. For me, I was like, damn, what a gift that feedback is.
Yeah.
wow, you're great at hitting, I'm going to use a baseball analogy. You're great at hitting like a double or a triple. You're great at getting on the bases, but like there's an opportunity to start thinking about home runs.
Hmm.
That was really powerful. And the other thing for you, which was as a coach, one thing that's really fun for me is we get feedback normally from 10 people. And then we bring it all together and synthesize it. And what I remember with you was there was a really unique leadership archetype that emerged for you. And we kind of, I drew an analogy to Ray Dalio has a beautiful thing. And it was this quiet leadership. It was this quiet, firm, not over the top, not like a Gary Vaynerchuk, not a typical archetype, but you at your most powerful had a very unique way of showing up as a leader where if you were to orient towards self-help books, it would actually take you away from you at your most powerful. And so this is another thing that I really do as an executive coach is I try and help people find their unique style of leadership where they're their most powerful. Not trying to fit them into any other idea of leadership, but really help them find what's you when you're operating in your genius as a leader.
Yeah. And I want to go back to the one of the feedback, and yeah, I feel really, really grateful that I learned about that, through the process. And one of them was, which you were highlighting, that, yeah, some of my team members, they felt that I'm still playing small. I should actually, based on my experience that I have, and all of that, they think that I should play even bigger, and in a bigger arena. And I was kind of holding myself off for that. But some of my team members, they helped me realize that, like, yeah, you should actually, can and should actually play even higher in a bigger, more complex, more challenging, or even the bigger arena. So that was kind of like very helpful, to kind of like just see me that how I can actually level up my own goals and play and do things that are even out of my comfort zone. So that was, I think, even I think one of them was very specific, that I should go to all these different conferences and see the business from more like in the bigger picture and bring in some of those ideas rather than keeping myself busy on executions, because my team already got it, but I thought like, oh, they need my help with the execution, but I realized that they actually want me to go more play the strategy role because they got the execution. So kind of like these are some of the things that I would be making an assumption myself, like, oh, if I don't help them, they feel like I'm not helpful. But it was opposite of that. They were like, no, we don't need your help. We got this. You go out, do the podcast, do the whatever else that you want to do, but do those things, build, your leadership and authority in the industry, and bring in that perspective here and share with us. And we got the execution. That was kind of like one of the things that helped me a lot, and that kind of like also helped me how I prioritize the structure the company and gave some of the role to the different team member. And now, more specifically in 2023, this year, what are the different roles that I enjoy playing and what are the things that I should be playing? That's kind of what I started doing more. So that was another big learning from that.
Yeah, well, and the thought I have is one way entrepreneurs burn out is they let themselves just get bored. Right? Like what I hear there is that call was there's a much bigger game that you can be playing. And while that game is scary and risky and requires you give up, it's like there's an aliveness to having that invitation of, hey, man, I want you asking, you're great at what you're doing, but I want you asking questions that are 10x bigger than that.
Yeah.
And wow, like as an entrepreneur, that's a really enlivening thing. And so one question potentially, if you're burned out, is, are you just bored? Have you been playing the same game over and over again and letting yourself get bored with it? And there's plenty of reasons to do that. Oh, I don't want to risk the business I've built. I'm not sure what would be next, and that's scary. But sometimes we burn out because we're just bored.
Yeah. That's a very good point, Justin. And as again, this is a peaceful growth podcast, and a lot of time people take peace as like in a wrong example. They feel like, oh, I'm doing too much and I should not be doing too much. because that's against the peaceful growth. And sometimes I was like, no, it's not about how much efforts you put in. It's about where you put those efforts. That's what is going to define the peaceful growth in your life. If you are not working or working way too much on a wrong mountain, wrong goal, it doesn't matter, like, what do? You will actually end up feeling miserable, or like, will not go anywhere, and it will not give you any joy or excitement in life. But even if you are working 10, 14 hours on a goal that's really giving you a passion, energy, and you really enjoy doing this, it's also challenging, as you said. That's where I think also the peaceful growth also fits into the picture.
Okay guys, so if you're interested to check out how Multicollab works and how Multicollab can solve your problems or improve your content publishing workflow, you can go to our website and click on the Try Demo tab in the menu section. Then simply fill out your details and there you go. Now you have access to the demo environment where you can test all the amazing features that Multicollab has to offer.
Yeah. As you did that, I just had an image. One way of having peaceful growth is to just hide in a cave. You'll have lots of peace hiding in a cave, but
you're
not out there living. And so, I think when we're talking peaceful growth, we're talking about that sense of peace, but also a sense of aliveness, of being out in the world and in our creative faculties and energy.
Yeah. And I got this question a few times, that when I started the Peaceful Growth podcast, and in the beginning, I was telling everyone that, like, hey, the reason I started this because I'm not good at this. I don't like it takes a lot. It's stressful for me to being on a video call, as an introvert. And as you say, like quiet leader, all that, like, it's not something that's very natural for me to kind of like, it actually drains my energy, and like I have all the reason not to do this, and that's why I was kind of like holding on this for a long time. But then that's where exactly I was telling myself that I will not grow in my comfort zone. Like, not going in a video is a comfort zone for me, like, just being behind the camera. But doing a podcast and going out, talking, this is like uncomfortable, but I know it is also required for my growth. This is how I'm going to learn from the other entrepreneurs. This is how I'm going to share my story. This is how I'm going to actually create my brand. So all those different things that is uncomfortable is also required for the growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And there's an alignment to that too, right? It's not just about being outside of your comfort zone. I hear from you, there's a real purpose. There's a vision behind it.
Right.
And so I also, when I think about working with people a lot, I think about alignment. Because there is a branch of self-help thought that's just live outside your comfort zone, live outside of it. And I go, what? Why? Yeah. Why are we actually doing that? And here there's an alignment between I'm willing to go outside of my comfort zone for a deeper want and longing and purpose that's here for me. And I find those two things are frequently where the sweet spot is. I have a purpose and a vision that is drawing me out into taking some risks, doing some uncomfortable things, taking on some challenge.
Yeah. You and I, we both know Corey, and I did his intentional life design course that he was doing cohort. And one thing he shared, which I remember, and I think is very relevant to what we are talking about. He said that what you are willing to sacrifice or work hard right now, so that in the future you feel better about it. So sometimes what we are struggling in the present, if it is leading you to your desired goal, in the near future, then that struggle is worth it. Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing it, but there was a message, like very, very beautiful message, that sometimes we struggle. Like, for example, if I want to build a habit to wake up in the morning, so it will feel like a torture to wake up in the morning, and I don't feel like it. So it's kind of like a torture. It feels like a struggle, but I know, as you said, like it's aligned to kind of a life that I want to live. I want to live a healthy life. I want to live, a life where I'm not just rushing into things, I have plenty of time, so better I get up in the morning, so that's kind of like something that also aligned with that. Like if you're trying to push your limit and getting out of your comfort zone, and what you mentioned about that if it's aligned to your desired outcome in the future, then that struggle is worth it.
Yeah, it reminds me of a question that comes up in this space a lot, which is, what are you willing to risk for your full aliveness? And if you're stuck, sometimes the right question to ask, which is something you pointed to before, which is, what am I not willing to risk right now? Because that's frequently the point of stuckness, similar to that question, which is, what are you afraid of? What's the fear that's holding you back? Frequently, the stuckness that we encounter is, there's something I'm not actually willing to risk right now. Yeah. That can really help you illuminate your internal blockers.
So, all right, let's move on to the next question, Justin. That so far we talked about how to find that, what are the things that you're struggling, some early signs of burnout and stuff like that. Then we talked about how to find help, what are how actually executive coach, leadership coach to help. My next question is, you help in helping a lot of different entrepreneurs like me, with getting clarity, vision, and living their best life, both professionally and personally. What are some of those tools or strategies that you shared that you found that has been most effective for the people, entrepreneurs who have been struggling with the burnout? Like some of the tools and strategies, I know, it will be very unique, very different for each situations and each entrepreneurs, but something that you can, maybe one or two tools that you can share that you feel like, that's how we help.
Yeah, I'm thinking of this really practically for people who are listening, for if they're struggling with burnout. And one core thing to know, I've had a couple conversations about this recently, including with Corey, who's a friend and a fellow co-host of No Clear Answers, which is self-care is not a fix for burnout. Self-care is a way to recover from burnout after we burned out, but it doesn't actually address the root symptoms of how did we get here. And so when I'm thinking about burnout and how to help someone, the real question that I'm looking at is, well, how did we get here? How did we get to a place of being burned out? And the things that I really look for, if I were to summarize it as simply as possible, is people are still doing things out of obligation. They're kind of a no to what they're doing, but they're still doing them. And so one tool that we'll look at is, where are you pretending like you're a yes, where you're actually a no? What projects are you working on that when you really tune in, when you get out of your head, which this is a common pattern, is entrepreneurs get in their head about what's smart and what's the right thing to do and all these things. But when you get out of your head and we tap into your gut and your heart, what are the things that you're working on that when you tune in, you're like, I'm not actually a no to that. Doesn't excite me. That doesn't bring me alive. And that can be projects, business partners, people you're working on. That can be your work rhythms, right? I'm still working 14-hour days and I'm not actually a yes to that. And so one common exercise is I want to pull people out of their head and their ideas of what they should be working on and how they should be working, and just get them into their hearts and guts. And what that might look like is, like you said, getting really clear on, what do you actually want right now from your work? What do you actually want? What do you actually want? What's actually your mission, vision, or purpose? Or another game I'll play with entrepreneurs is they'll be all heady about things. And I'll just say, what does your gut say? 3, 2, 1, go.
Interesting.
Don't think about it. Just blurt out what your gut wants. And it's really beautiful because people will just blurt something out and then they'll surprise themselves. Like, wow, I didn't realize that was going on. Do you really, they'll be all heady about a project, and I'll go, 3, 2, 1, do you really want to be working on this project? And they'll go, no. I'll go, oh, great. And another tool that I really work on with people is tapping into unfelt emotions.
Hmm.
A lot of entrepreneurs struggle with suppress, override, but well, specifically, sometimes people will call like the dark triad of emotions, which is sadness, anger, and fear.
Hmm.
They want to have a joyful, positive state. And so when anger shows up, they kind of override and suppress it. If they're sad, they override and suppress it. If they're fearful, they override and suppress it.
Hmm.
And one thing that I want to do is I want to tap in. If somebody's chronically feeling frustrated at when they show up to work, for me, what I actually think is that frustration is data. It's intelligent. It's important data. And so I want to really get into what's frustrating you about work right now.
Hmm.
Or if they're chronically sad, I want to go, what's having you feel sad and disappointed about work right now?
Hmm.
There's a lot of fear. What are you afraid of? What's the fear here? Because these are often signposts, pointers to the things where they're not in alignment with work.
Hmm.
So I really take a stand for tapping into those and not wallowing in them, not sitting in the moods, but really pulling those emotions up and out and feeling them and then going, what is this telling you? Because that's going to help them be more aligned.
Hmm. One thing I'll add into that, and that's kind of like one of my favorite tool, which you mentioned in the beginning. The first one was like, what exactly you want to do here? Like, what is the something that what's yes and no? My version of that is energy audit. So every month I have this practice. Like every month I have this some journaling prompt, and one of the prompt is, what did I do this month that actually bring energy, new energy, or the one, oh, look at that time. Yeah. Actually, I learned that the new Mac OS update has this new cool gesture. So like if I do this, some balloons will come out. Where are the balloons? There you go.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
the AI that Zoom has? Incredible.
Yeah.
If you're not watching on YouTube, this is your invitation to watch on YouTube so you understand what's going on right now.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, energy audit. So what I do is I just write it down, because you are like in the moment, you feel like, okay, I should be doing this. In the moment, you feel like I need to do it. But after doing that task, when I think about that, like, okay, did that task contributed energy, or it drained my energy, or it increased my energy after doing it? And the task which increased my energy, which I feel, oh, look at that, the another one.
Fireworks!
Wow,
I love it.
We are really adding some sparks in this podcast.
We really are incredible.
I need to tie my hands.
Apparently.
Oh my God. All right. So yeah, those again who are listening to this and not on a YouTube, I'm just using all these hand gestures, and it's just kind of like creating all these cool effects on a call. It's kind of fun to see, but not intended. Yeah. So energy audit, so that kind of like helps me. It's my version of that yes and no question. And then after that, the one that actually drained my energy, I will see whether that's what consciously I'm aware about it, that it's and I know what we talked about, like it's worth for my future goal, wherever I want to go. It's worth that initial struggle, and the energy drain. But if it's like, no, I don't want to do it, and I didn't know that, that I'm doing that, so that's kind of like things that I try to avoid. I find a way how I can delegate it, eliminate it, automate it, so that I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah. One other edge that I invite people to play with, which is similar to an energy audit, but that you can do in the moment, is this tool that's called a whole body yes.
Yeah.
And to identify it, you can play this very quickly as somebody who's listening, is just envision the last time in your life when you were a crystal clear, oh my God, hell yes, of course. It could be for something big, like a big opportunity, a new job, a new client. Could be for something small. It could be you went out to dinner last Friday and like you saw an item on the menu and went, oh yeah, that's what I want to eat. But go and find that. And once you have it, feel your body. Notice that your body feels a very specific way. And actually do this. Go envision it. Envision that thing that you said yes to and feel it. And normally for me, there's a lightness, there's kind of a tingling, there's a warmth to it. And then also what you can do is go to the other end of the spectrum and feel into a hell no. When was the last time you were a no to something? And feel that. For me, that feels firm. It feels grounded. I kind of feel like you can't move me from it. And now the game that you can play is, as you're going through your life, if you want to be really edgy, only honor your whole body yes. Go on what's called a no diet, which is for 2 weeks, say no to everything unless it's a whole body yes. And if somebody asks why not, just go, hey, I'm honoring my whole body yes right now. And I don't even know why, but this isn't a whole body yes for me. And that can really help you understand where you're in and out of alignment. And for me, it's like the most beautiful manifestation of a life is I'm always a whole body yes. I only do things I'm a whole body yes to. So that's another really great tool that you can play around with in the moment. Am I a whole body yes? No. Is there something here that would make it a whole body yes? And if there is, go ask for that. That can really bring life back into it, because it's really hard to be burned out if you're really excited about what you're doing all the time. If you're really alive, it's hard to burn out. You might get tired, but that's different than burning out. Burning out for me is a mental, emotional, it's a soulful thing. And that for me, again, is a sign of I'm not aligned. I'm not feeling alive and excited.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point, especially in the moment when you're making a decision, as you say, like how you just tuning into your body and how your body actually responds, like, whether that's a full body yes or no. And I also remember the one exercise that you and I did together, and you actually suggested me to do, feel the feeling. Is it the one of feel the feeling, or did it say something else?
Yeah, feeling your feelings, which for me is when feelings show up, actually stop, pause. Notice there's a feeling here, sadness, anger, fear, grief, whatever.
Right.
Locate the sensations in your body, identify them, welcome them. And then lastly, the big thing is get really animalistic or childlike with it. And just, does your body want to do anything to match the emotion? With joy and celebration, people will jump or clap or do a dance.
Yeah.
With anger, sometimes there's a grippiness, there's a grr, there's things that come out. But really let the emotional energy move through you. And then lastly, like I said before, ask yourself, what's the intelligence of this emotion? Anger normally says, stop. Something wants to be stopped. This doesn't make sense. Stop doing this. Sadness is normally there's something here to grieve that I'm going to have to let go of. Fear is there's something here for me to face, to pay attention to. And then joy and creative energies, there's something here to be celebrated and created. Yeah, that's a really, for me, important somatic skill for not suppressing those emotions and instead for moving the energy through and then getting the information that the emotions provide.
Yeah, that particular exercise was very, very helpful for me. Even nowadays, I try to remind myself to do that. Especially like, when I feel angry or like, sad, it just comes like, if you're aware about the anger, then you're not angry. There was something that I kind of like tell myself, like, if you're aware about the sadness, then you're not sad. So that just bringing that awareness, the tool that you shared with me about feeling the feeling, I think that kind of like put me into that state of mind where I start being aware about the emotion and the feeling that I'm going through, rather than like, that emotion or feeling take over me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of one of my mentors, Diana Chapman, who's the head of the Conscious Leadership Group. We have language for head intelligence and emotional intelligence, IQ and EQ. She's really trying to give this name BQ, body intelligence. Are we in tune with the simple intelligence of our bodies? And this is a great exercise for that. And another one, I'll sometimes do this before calls. If I'm nervous or excited or there's not aliveness, there's a prompt that's just for 60 seconds, express yourself, but only by moving your body and making sounds. No words, no typing things, just what's here for me right now and express it in sounds and with your body.
Interesting.
And this for me is often a real quick shift to feeling alive and energized again, because I'm very in touch with my head. I'm very in touch with my emotions. But sometimes I'm not so much in touch with my body. And that's a great tool to getting into the wisdom of what is in my body at that moment.
Yeah. I love that. Thanks for sharing that tool, Justin. Yeah. That was and sometimes these are just very simple things. It doesn't take like hours, right? Or it doesn't take that, you need to go out of your way. Yeah, just take 30 seconds, but it just makes the whole thing different.
Yeah, I'll share even before this call, frequently before calls like this, I get excited. But sometimes the excitement, I can think that it's nerves. And so I'll notice I get kind of frozen in my body. I get a little static in my body. And so before I even came on with you, I just did this exercise and I noticed I just kind of wanted to.
Yeah, I saw you in the beginning when I started. Like I saw some of your movement. I was like, wow.
Yeah. And for me, that was like, oh, I'm not nervous. I'm not afraid. I don't need to freeze. There's excitement here. And I actually want to move that. And suddenly, there's alive now. Oh, wait. Yeah, I'm not nervous. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Yeah.
And that takes 30 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. No, love it. Thanks for sharing that, Justin. All right. So next thing, and probably the last thing I wanted to talk about, what are some of those common traits of a high performer entrepreneurs or a conscious entrepreneur? Because we talked about in the beginning that, and you write about the conscious leadership. Maybe you can tell a little bit about what is conscious leadership and what are some of the traits that you have observed in a high performer entrepreneurs that kind of reflects the conscious leadership and high performing entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So conscious leadership, I'll break down the definition very specifically as my training's given me. And I'll kind of share conscious leadership is really an orientation towards leadership. Like I said, I don't just want to be effective, but I also want to be aware. I want to track where am I at right now? How am I operating? And conscious, the real strict definition from where I came up is to be present here and now in a non-triggered, non-reactive state. So I'm not reactive. I'm not triggered. I'm not in a threatened state trying to fix things or change things. I'm just present. I'm just really here. And so a conscious leader is, I both want to be effective, but I really want to be present and aligned and in tune with what's here for me now, what's here in the atmosphere around me. If we talk about really high-performing conscious entrepreneurs from what I've seen, there's a few really core building blocks. One is, as we've talked about, there's a long-term view. There's a real willingness to be patient in the highest performing entrepreneurs that I know. And part of the reason for this is nobody here is beyond mistakes. I don't know a single entrepreneur who hasn't gotten kicked in the teeth hard. The way to win in entrepreneurship, in my experience, is to be willing to play the game for a long time, a long enough time for things to work out for you. Look at you, 14 years, right? And so to really have the resilience to stay in and play the game for the long haul, there needs to be some long-term vision here, some long-term thing that I'm willing to play for, even if it's not this project that succeeds, even if it's not necessarily even this company, there's something bigger that's pulling me forward. And so that's the foundation that's sitting on top of it. Now, paradoxically, frequently the highest performing entrepreneurs also have an impatience. So there's this real long-term patience, but at the same time, a short-term impatience. They're kind of holding these two opposites at the same time, where I'm willing for this to take a decade, but I would prefer for it to take a year. So that's one thing that I really see. The second thing is there is a relentless orientation toward learning. And this can look different, what I've seen in a lot of entrepreneurs. For some people, that learning comes in the form of listening to a lot of podcasts, reading a lot of books, doing a lot of learning. But for others, it truly is an orientation, which is, I might not love reading books, I may not love listening to podcasts, but I am using every moment of every day as an opportunity to learn about myself, about the world, about my business, about my clients, around the people around me. They are learning machines. They are taking away information and data from every single moment of every single day. And I think the third thing that I commonly see is an orientation towards taking 100% responsibility. And that's as opposed to blaming people or situations. And listen, the reality of the consciousness game is all of us are going to get triggered. Sometimes even the most conscious of entrepreneurs are, instead of learning, they're going to be more committed to being right. Instead of committed to the long game, they're going to feel scarce. Instead of taking responsibility, they're going to blame. But this is kind of the home where they're most invested in coming back to, which is, if my company's not going well, rather than blaming the world out there, I come back and I go, well, what can I do? What's within my control to help my company do better? If their employees are struggling, instead of blaming them, they go, how can I be more supportive of my employees? And that might ultimately be, this one employee is not actually a great fit. If they're feeling burned out and they're struggling, instead of just being a victim to their burnout, they come in and they go, what's going on? What's causing me to be burned out? How can I take responsibility for my state and getting into the state that I want to be? And frequently what I find is those three layers, a purpose, a real long-term orientation toward what they want, a real curiosity and desire to learn both about the world and about themselves, and then a willingness to just relentlessly come back to taking responsibility. That's a really powerful engine for an entrepreneur to have. And pretty consistently, that's what I see in the folks that I work with.
Justin, have you published this or written this anywhere? Because it's really helpful, and not only it's inspirational, but I think it's also very simple and clear. It's like, I would actually like to if you have already written somewhere, I would like to take it out and print it and put it as a poster somewhere as a reminder, like what a conscious leader or a high-performing entrepreneur, do, and how I can kind of like replicate and take some inspirations from that.
I don't have a post, but thanks for the toss. I guess I have a post that I need to write.
Yeah. Please do. I think that would be very valuable. And I'm subscribed to your newsletter as well. So if you end up publishing a newsletter, then I'll maybe take it from there, and mention it into our show notes. But what you shared in those points, I think that's kind of sums up really well, in order to, like, whenever we feel a little lost, whenever we feel like, I just want to see, as a high-performing entrepreneur or conscious leader, what are the things that I'm doing, what are the things that I'm missing, and how I can kind of improve that. Yeah,
that's my experience. And again, there's no foolproof method. The reality of entrepreneurship is, I'm not going to promise if you take on those traits, your company's going to guarantee it succeed. There's no promise of that.
Yeah.
But those are the ingredients that really give you the best shot. And again, frequently the ones who win are the ones who can take a blow, have things not work out for them, and pick themselves back up again take that responsibility and get back up on the horse.
Yeah, no, I love it. And that makes sense that everything that you shared, that's something that is kind of like good to see, and like what are the things that we are doing in that direction. And it's just something that will help you align, with stay in the right path when you are in that journey. It doesn't guarantee you that it will get, will have you, whatever your version of success is, you will get that, but it will keep you in the right path.
Yeah. And maybe find a version of success or aliveness that you didn't even realize that you wanted in the first place.
That's a good point. Awesome. Great stuff, Justin. So let me ask you this question, that as you are helping and coaching entrepreneurs, with finding their life's purpose, aligning their life visions and goals, and also helping with the burnout, how do you take care of yourself? Like, what do you do and apply in your life in order to make sure that you are not burnt out and balancing growth and peace in your life? If there are any tools or tips that you have, or something that you apply for yourself, I'm curious to hear that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I probably fall into a common pattern that entrepreneurs fall into, which is my natural focus tends to go on how much am I working? I want to put a lot of effort into work. And also I can frequently go up into my head about what's the smart thing, what's the right thing, what should I do? And so frankly, a lot of the advice I gave on this show, whenever I show up, I'm kind of also talking to myself, right? And so my game consistently is to come back down out of head, back into heart and body center, come back into that intelligence. What does it have to offer me? Where is it showing me that I'm out of alignment? And so some of my most important practices, I've been an avid journaler for over a decade. I actually,
do
people who
digital journaling, or you do actual journaling? Like,
I actually do both. I let it flex depending on what my mood is for a day. So I have a really nice journal. I frequently, if I have a written one, it's a nice leather journal, but sometimes I wake up and I don't want to take the time to handwrite. So I'll also type it. But this is actually my advice for people who want to start getting to self-inquiry and introspective work. I advise journaling before meditation because I find there's a better adherence rate. I find a lot of people have a hard time building the meditation habit, but it's easier to build the journaling habit. And frequently what my journaling habit looks like is first thing in the morning, I just pop it open. And the question I just kind of ask myself is, what's here right now? And I just kind of talk. It's just a chance to talk to myself. It's a chance to talk to myself about what I'm feeling, what I'm wanting, where I feel misaligned, where I feel aligned. So journaling is a really important practice in my life. Meditation is another one. Meditation really helps me identify. So much of my meditation recently has been getting in tune with my body and the physical sensations of my body. And so that help me come down, and again, lets me feel tension. Where might that tension be coming from, and where might I be misaligned? And the two other things that are really important.
What type of meditation do you do? Is it transcendental? Like what? Yeah, if you can share a little bit about the meditation that you do.
Yeah, for the past year, I've been using Sam Harris's Waking Up app, which is very informed by this specific branch of meditation, I believe, called Dzogchen meditation. And the idea, it's the path to both waking up and non-dual awareness and all these fancy terms that I couldn't really define particularly well. But a lot of it is identified with coming into the whole of your awareness and your body sensations. And I really love that app. And I also am a avid supporter of metta meditation or loving kindness meditation. And to briefly get on a monologue about this, I think loving kindness for ourselves is something that is not often taught and is really missing from the performance discussion today. I think a lot of us have a narrative that we need to be hard and mean and cruel to ourselves to be successful. And my experience as I've worked on my inner critic and found more loving kindness and acceptance for myself is that the opposite is true. There is so much creativity and aliveness and energy of being fundamentally on your own team. And so I'm an avid supporter of loving kindness meditation, which is the practice of taking people you love, finding loving kindness, sending it to them, but then also redirecting it back towards yourself.
Love it.
And then the two other things that are most important to me are physical activity. And specifically for me, it's getting outside. Getting outside and into nature can be so nourishing. I find there's a difference to me for the nourishment I get from going to the gym versus going for a hike or getting out into the forest. And two, what's hugely important for me is relationships, is having close in-person social relationships. Now, I'm a little bit more extroverted, but there's a common cycle I can find myself in where I'm burning out. I'm like, what's off here? And really what's up is I'm not engaging enough in just friendship and just loving friendship. And so that's been a really important pillar for me, especially coming out of COVID, where a lot of us were isolated. It's been so central to me to have really meaningful, loving relationships that I can go to throughout my weeks and months and days.
I love it. Especially like everything that you say, journal, meditation, and walk in the nature or hike in the nature. Yeah, those are, I do meditation, journaling. I think I do the digital, but I like what you're not creating any constraint that, okay, it should be in the writing or it should be digital. Like I do both, I like it. I do not usually, but primarily digital. So meditation, one thing that has helped me a lot in my life, I think I would say, first thing I would put meditation, because that's kind of like changing the whole perspective. And it just puts me into a very different state of mind every day when I do the meditation. And another thing is just a routine, like a structured routine, that kind of like also set me up for the success. And it kind of like removes all those uncertainties and decisions making, because I'm very clear that what my day look like. Of course, like there will be few things here and there which will not go according to your schedule, but having a schedule itself has been one of the second actually big hack for me in order to continue to making the progress on all those different things that I really enjoy or are near and dear to me.
Yeah, same. I forget to mention it because I've been so schedule driven for my life.
Yeah.
And actually in recent years, I hold my schedule more loosely. Okay. Because I found I was taking some of sucking the life and energy out of my life by being too disciplined with that schedule. But yeah, like most mornings, my goal is to wake up, journal with some coffee, and then meditate. And that's just a nice injection into my day. But one thought I also had as you were speaking was, for me and a lot of the entrepreneurs I know, we exist in a high energy doing mode a lot of the time. Do. And so for me, what self-care really comes about is I can almost feel when the switch flips and I come down into just easeful. There's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. Everything is complete and fine right now. And so hitting that space regularly, I've struggled with it for a decade. I feel like I'm the best at it now. I'm sure there's still ways to go. But that space of there's nothing I need to do right now is so fundamentally nourishing to me that that's often where I'm trying to get to in these self-care activities. There's nothing I need to do. No goal to achieve right now. I'm just with people I love. I'm just out in nature. I'm just journaling. I'm just meditating. No goal to achieve.
Yeah. I mean, very great. Well, there are so many great different hacks and tools that you can apply, but also it is very personalized too. Like, for example, I like meditation, Justin like meditation. Probably you like something else, but important is that, figuring it out, that what you do in your routine, that puts you into, turns off, whatever the other side of your brain and body that's constantly going and basically recharges you. So I had another guest early on the podcast. He's a breathwork coach. So he does a lot of meditations and breath work, and like a lot of like just a human performance optimization, more like through the breath and body. One thing he suggested in that discussion was very interesting. He's like, what happens is that we all are constantly going on and on and on into our job, our role, our life. But we don't have a time to recharge ourselves. So basically his point was that rest and recharge, they both are a different thing. Rest is something that you're just sitting there not doing anything. Recharge is you're finding the activity which gives you back energy in your body. So let's say meditation for someone would not be a recharging activity, but it is, I believe, it's for you and me. But for someone else, playing a golf is a recharging activity, or reading a book is a recharging. So whatever that recharges your brain and body, walking in a nature might be recharging, or just hanging out with your pets or kids can be a recharging. So whatever that is, but find your charging station. It's like, that's like a charging station. That's where you go and you charge yourself.
Wow, I've never heard the distinction between rest and recharge over there, and that is beautiful. That's really, really powerful stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I think looks like that's a great place to land this plane, Justin. Do you think so?
I think so. I feel great about it.
Awesome. All right. So I have a couple more things to go to share, and then we will slowly bring this to home. The one is, I know we talked a lot about entrepreneurship, burnout, different stuff. Is there anything that we didn't have a chance to talk, or that you would like to share, or
Oh goodness, there's so much we could talk about. What I'll say is, if this conversation is resonating with you, there's both my website, which I sure will link to, but a lot of this is informed by a group called the Conscious Leadership Group. They have a really beautiful book called The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. And they also have a website that I think is conscious.is. Conscious is.
Okay.
And they open source so much of what they do. And so if things like 100% responsibility, curiosity, emotional intelligence, if those things resonate with you and you find yourself going, ooh, I want more, head over to their website, and there's a section where you can scroll through the commitments. One commitment is 100% responsibility. One is all those things, and you can click on it, and they have a whole host of resources about diving deeper into those things. And so I recommend checking them out, because they're just so much good stuff that they're doing.
Great. We'll put all of that into our show notes, later on when we publish this. So that's where it can be helpful. Apart from that, I also wanted to mention that Justin has a really good newsletter. So if you are not subscribed to that, I would highly recommend to subscribe that. We'll put that into show note. I'm also one of the subscriber. Another thing, I think I mispronounced your podcast. I said no right answers, but actually it's no clear answers. So just wanted to correct myself there. Justin.
No right answers was going to be the original name, but we didn't like the abbreviation, so we changed it. So it was actually funny because you found the original name, but we decided not to go with that and did no clear answers instead.
That's funny. Yeah. So, all right. So Justin has this great podcast. Just the other day, and I actually binge watched 3 or 4 episodes. I was folding my laundry. That's kind of like another of my recharging, like whenever I need a productive break, I'll just go and fold my laundry and listen to a podcast. That's how I recharge myself. So I was doing that, and I listened to, I think, 3 or 4 episodes in a row, and found a lot of great value. So yeah, listen to Justin's new podcast, No Clear Answers. And where else, Justin, that you want to point out where people can learn more about you, connect with you, and stay in touch with you?
JustinMulvaney.com is the best place to go. That'll link out to pretty much everything else. It links out to all my socials, links out to my newsletter, which is, if you're looking for a quick way to the podcast, a lot of my newsletters lately have been sharing tidbits and my favorite ideas from the episodes. So go to the website and you'll be able to find everything from there.
Great. Awesome. Well, I know this probably will be a little bit longer episode than all our past one, but there was a ton of value here. A lot of different topics that we have been talking about today with Justin. They're all of them. It took years for me to learn and find out. But yeah, Justin and I, we tried to kind of like pack all of them together in this 1.5 hour podcast. I hope you all find some great values there. With that, I think we are ready to kind of land this plane here. Thank you for listening to Peaceful Growth, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Okay guys, so thank you for watching. Now if you are interested and would like to try this out for yourself, we offer a 30-day free trial of our Pro plan where you can test all the Multicollab features. So for this, all you have to do is click on the link in the description below, and this will bring you to this page, and under the Pro heading, simply click on this button here. Now simply enter a few details, and that's it. You're ready to enjoy the Pro version of Multicollab for free for 30 days. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.